we are part of the Vietnamese American organizers of Minnesota and co-hosts for this beautiful evening. Today we are gathered in front of the Capitol to make history as we celebrate the inception of a proclamation to remember and recognize the resilience of Vietnamese living in Minnesota. Before we celebrate though, please turn off your cell phones. That'd be greatly appreciated. And I'm going to provide a bit of context to help convey why this day is so incredibly important for our community. So just about everyone present, I assume, is familiar with Vietnamese food. I mean, we all have likely had a savory bowl of pho, a mouth-watering banh mi, or delicious spring roll. And shoot, I mean, we have changed the food game alone, people. I mean, Sriracha, what restaurant doesn't have a bottle or two laying around, okay? But with that being said, those outside the Vietnamese community may be familiar with our foods, but not necessarily with the stories of the Vietnamese people that make them and the community that supports them. And when Vietnamese refugees try to tell these amazing stories about their arduous journey escaping and crossing the ocean, coming to America, it starts with April 30th, 1975. April 30th, 1975 marks the fall of Saigon. It's the day where Vietnamese people, like my mother and father, realized that the South Vietnamese government suffered a devastating setback in the war. And oftentimes when this day arrives, a few journalists reflect on the tragic day and include the iconic black and white image of that Seoul helicopter on top of that small roof where droves of people are pushing their way to leave their native country for freedom. Obviously, that day changed the war, the country, and its people forever. It displaced my father, who came over to Minnesota with his several brothers, one being a Navy officer, in 1975, and my mother and half-brother, both people who endured an unfathomable suffering during the early 80s. And for all the Vietnamese people standing here today in front of the Capitol, it displaced us too. Speaking of displaced, so have our narratives of the war, and frankly, mainstream movies such as Platoon, Full Metal Jacket, and Good Morning Vietnam fail to tell our side, our struggle, our injustice, our sacrifice, our journey to America. But no more. Today marks a new beginning. Today marks the day that we begin to tell our own stories that we can share for future generations of Vietnamese people. And today, thanks to Governor Mark Dayton and the work of the Vietnamese community leaders and members, marks the day that Minnesota recognizes April 30th officially as Vietnamese Remembrance Day. And now I'm going to pass the mic off to an outstanding member of the community, Solange Huynh, and she would like to say a few inspiring words to the Vietnamese community.
Kính chào quý ông bà và anh chị em. Thân ái chào tuổi trẻ Việt Nam thân mến. Ngày 22 tháng 4 năm 2015, tức cách đây 8 ngày, Thống đốc tiểu bang Minnesota của Hiệp chủng quốc Hoa Kỳ đã ký quyết định chính thức công nhận Ngày tưởng nhớ Việt Nam Cộng Hòa của chúng ta. Hôm nay là ngày 30 tháng 4 năm 2015. Ngày này 40 năm trước là ngày mà miền Nam Việt Nam đã bị giải phóng khỏi sự tự do và thế giới văn minh của nhân loại. Là ngày mà cuộc tị nạn ồ ạt của người dân miền Nam Việt Nam bắt đầu và không ngơi nghỉ. Kính thưa ông bà và anh chị em, sự hiện diện của ông bà và anh chị em ở đây đã chứng tỏ lòng của chúng ta hãy còn thổn thức rất nhiều, tưởng nhớ đến quê hương, hãy còn khắc khoải, trăn trở và sốt sắng chia sẻ nỗi niềm hay dở để giúp thế hệ con em của chúng ta rút tỉa kinh nghiệm hầu tiến bước. Buổi lễ tưởng niệm hôm nay bao hàm 3 ý nghĩa được tóm tắt trong 3 chữ R: Remembrance, tưởng nhớ, tưởng niệm; Recognition, biết ơn; and Resilience, trỗi dậy và bước tiến. Chúng ta đã tưởng nhớ biến cố lịch sử 30 tháng 4 năm 1975 với một nỗi niềm sâu thẳm. Chúng ta đã mất đi sự tự do từ đó. Chúng ta không bao giờ quên ơn các chiến sĩ Việt Nam Cộng Hòa đã anh dũng chiến đấu, hy sinh cho tự do của dân tộc, cũng như các chiến sĩ Hoa Kỳ đã nằm xuống trong chiến tranh Việt Nam. Chúng ta đã trỗi dậy và tiến lên bằng tất cả cố gắng, nỗ lực của chính mình, bắt đầu lại từ con số 0, vượt qua mọi gian khổ để thế hệ tre già của chúng ta trước khi bị già cỗi, thế hệ măng ở chung quanh chúng ta đây và ở khắp nơi trên thế giới, vươn lên cao, vững vàng trong gió bão, xứng đáng là con em của thế hệ Việt Nam Cộng Hòa. And now we have a presentation of the colors. Please stand to welcome the presentation of the colors. Mời Toán Hậu Kỳ vào vị trí hành lễ.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Lễ chào quốc ca Hoa Kỳ bắt đầu. Nghiêm. Xuống chào bác.
And now I call Joanne Dow to sing the U.S. National Anthem.
Folks say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, came through the night, that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thời diện nghỉ. Lễ chào quốc ca Việt Nam Cộng Hòa bắt đầu. Nghiêm. Xuống chào bác.
Này công dân ơi, đứng lên đáp lời sông núi, đồng lòng cùng đi hy sinh biết gì thân sống, vì tương lai quốc dân cùng sống phá quấy tên, làm sao cho bay trên gương sao, thủ nương mây mau đào đêm bao, nói dòng lúc tiên phải cần sẽ vì người công chân luôn vững bền tâm trí hùng tráng quyết chiến đấu làm cho khắp nơi vang tiếng người đương nam cho đến muôn đời công nhân ơi, hóa lên tầng dưới cờ công nhân ơi, sao làm cho khói mờ thoáng cơn tàn pha khẽ vang, nói dòng xứng danh miền Nam dòng dòng bạc hồng.
Đèn xuống xuống. Đại diện nghỉ.
1 phút mặc niệm bắt đầu.
Nghe. Súng chào. Bắt. Đèn xuống xuống.
We have a moment of silence for the befallen.
Nghe. Chào tay. Chào.
Thank you.
Đèn xuống xuống. Chưa. Chưa.
So, before we actually read the proclamation, it's important to acknowledge those organizations and people that made it possible. The contributing members of the Vietnamese American organizers of Minnesota, and all the people that helped make this possible. And I'm just going to read this off. The Coalition of Asian American Leaders, the Council on Asian Pacific Minnesotans, the Vietnamese Student Association of Minnesota, the Vietnamese Community of Minnesota, the VCSA Minnesota with consultation from Vietnamese Veterans Association, Vietnamese Social Services of Minnesota, Hoi Ngo and Hoi Hui, Vietnamese staff from Amherst Wilder Foundation Southeast Asian Services and Center for Social Healing, along with friends, neighbors, and allies of the Vietnamese community in Minnesota. Obviously, it took a lot of passionate individuals and organizations to make this possible, so can we please give them a round of applause? And so we're actually now going to read the proclamation in English. So if you are reading parts of the proclamation, please come up to the front.
The proclamation of the state of Minnesota. Whereas April 30th, 2015 marks 40 years since the fall of Saigon, signifying the surrender of the Republic of Vietnam, the end of the Vietnam War, and the beginning of an era during which Vietnamese refugees were driven from their homeland, their home country, and
where those that survived the journey in search for peace and freedom left behind their families, livelihoods, and homeland for a chance to build a new life. And
whereas over 23,000 Vietnamese Americans now call Minnesota home, making significant contributions to a strong and robust state, enriching its diversity, culture, and economy.
Whereas preservation of the Vietnamese language, culture, and heritage honors Vietnamese elders' steadfast commitment to family and roots Vietnamese Americans in a unified identity. And
whereas Vietnamese Americans believe we must heal from our community's shared trauma of war and displacement to grow and progress as healthy Minnesotans by remembering who we are and where we come from, embodying the strength of will, the spirit of perseverance, and the human character of resilience.
And now, therefore, Mark Dayton, Governor of Minnesota,
does hereby proclaim Thursday, April 30th, 2015 as Vietnamese Remembrance Day in the state of Minnesota.
Tiếp theo là lời đọc bản tuyên ngôn bằng Việt ngữ.
Bản tuyên ngôn của tiểu bang Minnesota xét rằng ngày 30 tháng 4 năm 2015 đánh dấu 40 năm kể từ ngày Sài Gòn thất thủ, Việt Nam Cộng Hòa sụp đổ, chấm dứt chiến tranh Việt Nam và dân Việt Nam bắt đầu hành trình rời bỏ quê hương để tị nạn. Và
những người sống sót trong các cuộc hành trình tìm tự do và hòa bình đã bỏ lại sau lưng gia đình, tài sản và tổ quốc của họ để tìm lại cơ hội xây dựng một cuộc sống mới. Và xét rằng hơn 23.000 công dân Mỹ gốc Việt đã chọn tiểu bang Minnesota là nhà. Họ đóng góp xây dựng một tiểu bang vững mạnh, làm cho văn hóa và nền kinh tế nơi đây phong phú hơn. Và
xét rằng qua việc bảo tồn ngôn ngữ, văn hóa và truyền thống Việt Nam, hầu đem lại sự vinh dự cho các bậc trưởng lão, là những vị đã dấn thân cho gia đình và cội nguồn để gây dựng nên một cộng đồng thống nhất. Và
xét rằng công dân Mỹ gốc Việt tin tưởng rằng chúng ta cần hàn gắn những vết thương bi đát vì chiến tranh và sự di tản gây ra, để chúng ta có thể vùng dậy và phát triển để trở thành những công dân Minnesota lành mạnh, bằng cách nhớ lại cội nguồn, bằng cách hung đúc ý chí, tinh thần bất khuất và kiên cường.
vì vậy, nay tôi, Mark Dayton, Thống đốc Minnesota, tuyên bố ngày thứ Năm 30 tháng 4 2015 là Ngày Tưởng Nhớ Việt Nam. Ký tên Thống đốc Mark Dayton.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Hugh Tu, President of the Vietnamese Community of Minnesota. We are one of the member contributing teams that formulated this event today. We have a great team of young people that got together and formulate. Tonight, we have not only just the young, but the old together, bridging together generations and 40 years of history that here in Minnesota. Before we have here is the chairman of the Fellowship of the Republic of Vietnam Servicemen, who will address you today as their keynote.
Xin kính chào quý vị, tôi là Ngô Trọng Phục, Chủ tịch Hội Cựu Chiến sĩ Quân lực Việt Nam Cộng Hòa tại tiểu bang Minnesota.
Greetings everyone, my name is Ngô Trọng Phục. I am the chairman of the Fellowship of the Republic of Vietnam Servicemen. I am here to greet you on behalf of the Vietnamese community.
Thưa quý vị, viên chức trong Quốc hội và chính quyền tiểu bang Minnesota.
Dear dignitaries and honored guests, especially all the representatives of the Minnesota State House and the senators of the Minnesota State Senate.
Thưa quý vị thân hào nhân sĩ trong cộng đồng Việt Nam tại Minnesota.
Dear honored guests and fellow countrymen.
Thưa quý vị đại diện các hội đoàn, đoàn thể, cơ quan, cơ sở kinh doanh, y tế, văn hóa.
To all of our organizations, both cultural, political and economic.
Thưa quý vị lãnh đạo tôn giáo.
To our religious organizations.
Thưa tất cả quý vị cựu chiến binh Hoa Kỳ, đồng minh và Việt Nam Cộng Hòa.
To all of our veterans, both in the Vietnamese Republic of Vietnam Army and the United States Armed Services.
Thưa quý vị đại diện các cộng đồng bạn.
And greetings to all of our allied organizations here today.
Và thưa quý vị ông bà và anh chị em.
And to you, my fellow countrymen.
40 năm sau khi rời bỏ quê cha đất tổ, bằng mọi cách để thoát khỏi ách cộng sản tìm tự do.
40 years has passed since we have left our homeland, departing away from a communist country that considers and sees no pain in human life and always commits suffering.
Đã đến lúc chúng ta phải nhìn lại quá khứ để xác định việc mà chúng ta phải làm ngày hôm nay.
Now that after 40 years we look back at the struggles and pains of the work that we have committed to rebuild our lives here in this state.
Trước hết và trên hết, cộng đồng Việt Nam tị nạn tại Minnesota hết lòng tri ân nhân dân, Quốc hội, Chính phủ Hoa Kỳ và các tổ chức thiện nguyện trên khắp nước Mỹ nói chung, và đặc biệt tại Minnesota nói riêng đã tiếp nhận, cưu mang và tạo cơ hội cho chúng tôi thành công như ngày hôm nay.
First of all, I would like to offer my gratitude to the United States of America and to the state of Minnesota for welcoming us here to this great land so that we once again are free people.
Mang thân phận lưu phong, nghèo nàn cả vật chất lẫn tinh thần, quý vị đã chẳng từ nan mà chia sẻ cho chúng tôi những gì quý vị đang có.
Without question, we were welcome to this land, to this state, and without question, you open your hearts. You open up to us your home so that we can once again rebuild our lives.
Kết quả là sự hiện hữu mạnh mẽ và sinh động của cộng đồng người Mỹ gốc Việt ngày nay đang cùng mọi người dân Minnesota góp phần vào sự phát triển không ngừng của tiểu bang.
The results of that has become that now we are all children of liberty, and the Vietnamese community takes it to heart that we ourselves will be citizens of this great country and of this great state, and we will live up to that promise and to that title as citizens of this land.
Kế tiếp, chúng tôi mang ơn rất nhiều sự hy sinh cao cả của các chiến sĩ Hoa Kỳ, Việt Nam Cộng Hòa và đồng minh trong công cuộc bảo vệ miền Nam Việt Nam tự do trước năm 1975.
And most important, we give honor and recognition and remembrance, especially to all of our veterans, those who have gone before us and those who are still here today, especially those of the Republic of Vietnam and the United States of America.
Sự hy sinh cả thân xác và một phần thân thể của những người này thật sự là vô giá và vô cùng cao quý. Chúng tôi đã phải mang một món nợ mà không bao giờ trả được.
With their sacrifice that has come, there is no price. It is priceless what we owe to the United States and to those who fought for freedom in Vietnam. The price that we owe in this will be passed on to generation that we are now free people thanks to the goodwill of the United States of America.
Và với sự phát triển lớn mạnh của cộng đồng người Mỹ gốc Việt tại Minnesota hiện nay, chúng tôi rất hãnh diện và khen ngợi các bạn trẻ Việt Nam trong nhóm VAO, Vietnamese American Organizer.
And one of our proudest moments of today and of the past couple days is to give honor and praise to our youth, to the people who organized this event today and who worked so tirelessly to bridge the older and younger generation in unity to move forward as we move our people forward from the tragedies of war.
Các cháu là thế hệ trẻ đang tiếp nối thế hệ cha ông làm rạng danh người Việt Nam ở nơi đây. Các cháu đã nỗ lực vận động thành công để Quốc hội, Thống đốc và chính quyền Minnesota công nhận ngày 30 tháng 4 năm 2015 là ngày tưởng nhớ Việt Nam. Đây là việc cần thiết để chúng ta có cơ hội hội nhập vào đời sống chính trị và thể hiện nề nếp dân chủ tự do của quốc gia Hoa Kỳ.
The work that the youth has done for this community today is beyond measure. What you have done is not only bridge the gap between the older generation and the younger generation, but what you have done is to give us honor and remembrance, and not only show to those who are before you that the following generation will keep heart and will keep the ideals of this community alive.
Và sau cùng, cộng đồng người Mỹ gốc Việt tại Minnesota chân thành cảm ơn các vị lãnh đạo quốc gia Hoa Kỳ, các vị thượng nghị sĩ, dân biểu, ông thống đốc, các vị quan chức trong chính quyền tiểu bang Minnesota đã ưu ái dành cho chúng tôi ngày hôm nay, 30 tháng 4, 2015, ngày tưởng nhớ Việt Nam.
On behalf of the Vietnamese community, I give my thanks and my gratitude, my appreciation to all the representatives, the senators, including the governor, and all those who made this proclamation and these resolutions come to fruition. My thanks for making April 30th, 2015 Vietnamese Remembrance Day. My thanks and gratitude to all.
God bless America. And God bless all of you tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks, bác Phúc. Tiếp theo là lời phát biểu của một số đại diện chính quyền của tiểu bang Minnesota.
So now we are going to have our esteemed dignitaries give a few words to help celebrate this truly historical and important day for our community. And first off, we'll start with Commissioner of Department of Veteran Affairs, Larry Shalito.
I'm going to represent the older generation. 40 years ago, I was north of here in an establishment that served Ba Mui Ba and crying with the fall of Saigon. If you go 2 years prior to that, I was a young Minnesota citizen who was given an opportunity by his country to serve it in a place called Vietnam. When I got there, I was given a gift that has been with me for the rest of my life, and I think it's why you are here today. And must remember that, and I speak to you, to the youth. I was assigned as an advisor. And as an advisor, I had myself and 4 NCOs, and our job was to live in the village with the Vietnamese. My least contact when I was over there was with Americans. I slept with your countrymen, I fought with your countrymen, I ate with your countrymen, and we worked together. And I was given a gift that has been with me, like I say, for the rest of my life. And I say that to you younger ones, because the contributions that you have made to this great state is remarkable, considering the hardships that your families have gone through. You have enriched this great state. You have made this a better state. And I owe it to you, and I owe it to your countrymen that are still over there, that we embrace and ensure that you are embraced by this great state. Thank you very much.
Next up, we have State Senator Phung Her. Please come up.
Xin chào, my Vietnamese friend, veterans, and everyone. I'm honored that this morning I was given the responsibility to introduce the proclamation that was read just a few minutes ago, so it's a great honor for me. Today is a happy day. Today has been a happy day as the sun rises freshly and now is setting to the west of us, but it's going to go east to our home country. Today is a happy day because 40 years ago was a different story. 40 years ago, the Vietnamese people suffered so much of the tragedy of war. You lost your loved ones, you lost your family, you lost your homes, and sadly you have to leave your home country. Though you have escaped from harm and had the warmest welcome here in Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes, the new life here was not easy for you. As a Hmong person from Laos, I can remember the struggle we had together. We went together there in those early days as refugees. We worked hard together, work in company factories 5 days a week, some even do 7 days a week. Then we get together in the weekends. We share our food and cultures. Even though we can't speak English and can communicate with each other, not knowing each other's language, but the smile and the mind gesture keep our energy going, give us comfort for the next 5 days to work hard again. And weeks went by, years went by, and so on. Now many have achieved the American dream. As a state senator of Minnesota, I applaud the hard work of the Vietnamese American community. Your strong family heritage, your spirit of determination, your success in business enterprise, your contribution to this land in all aspects of profession. And as an Asian descent, I applaud the Vietnamese American community even more, even further, because you made pho and banh mi so popular in this country that it become part of the mainstream American menu. I'm honored to join you today on the Vietnamese Remembrance Day. I bow my head to your elders. I salute your veterans who fought alongside our U.S. soldier. Their sacrifice is what we are here today. May the next 40 years be even more prosperous for you and for all of us. And may our children continue to remember your past. And thank you for coming here. And thank God for giving us today. Thank you very much. I do have a present, a gift for you made from the East Side St. Paul. One of the veteran made me a gift and told me that when an opportunity like this, I should honor you with that gift. And my staff is bringing that gift, so maybe I will present that gift to you a little later. I can explain to you it's a little key change that made of the Vietnamese flag. So I will present to all the veterans here, and then the rest of you, the younger generation, can take whatever's left as souvenir. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have State Representatives Deborah Hillstrom and Mike Nelson from Brooklyn Park.
It's a true honor to participate in honoring you in Vietnamese Remembrance Day. It is my honor to present you with a resolution from the Minnesota House of Representatives. The language is as the governor presented in his proclamation, but it says, "Be it resolved by the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration of the House of Representatives of the State of Minnesota that it honors April 30th, 2015 as Vietnamese Remembrance Day." Thank you so much for all that you have done for us and all you have done for Minnesota.
And again, thank you for all that you've done, and thank you for all that you brought to this country. Like all the immigrants before, your families, your stories, your history has been woven into the tapestry of our great country and the state of Minnesota, and it's made us richer for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both, Representative Hillstrom and Representative Nelson. I accept this on behalf of the Vietnamese American Organizers of America who worked on this proclamation. But most of all, I also accept this proclamation in honor of our elders. So at this moment, those of you who are in the Vietnamese American Organizers, will you come up and accept this for me as well too?
We also have a letter from the Secretary of State, Steve Simon. He couldn't be with us here today, so I will read the letter on his behalf. Thank you to VAO Minnesota for the invitation to this incredible event and for reading this letter on my behalf. And thank you to all Vietnamese American community members who are here today. I'm sorry that I'm unable to be there with all of you this evening. Today we honor 40 years of Vietnamese American history in Minnesota. We remember those who are no longer with us, and remember the refugees driven from their home country and, in many cases, forced to leave their families and livelihoods behind. And we remember the Vietnamese Americans whose strength and perseverance have brought us all here today. Most importantly, we stand today in solidarity with all Vietnamese Americans in Minnesota, which is now home to a Vietnamese community of more than 29,000 people. Thank you again to the volunteers and community members here today who have dedicated their time, energy, and hearts to this day. Minnesota would not be the same without you. Sincerely, Minnesota's Secretary of State, Steve Simon. Round of applause for Steve Simon, please. And can we give a round of applause for all of our dignitaries that spoke today? So next up, we have a world-renowned spoken word artist from Minnesota named Bao Phi. Translation to my Vietnamese people, Bao Phi là nhà thờ hay lắm. So give it up for Bao Phi, everybody.
Xin chào quý. I want to first of all thank the organizers, not just for inviting me here, but putting together this amazing program and having today anointed as Remembrance Day. Thank you all so much. You did incredible work. I also want to very quickly acknowledge our Cambodian, Hmong, and Lao and Southeast Asian brothers who also suffered because of this war. I also want to acknowledge the struggle in Baltimore and for any people around the world fighting for recognition for their pain and against injustice. I only have one poem for you today. I was born in February 1975, the same year that Saigon fell, as a baby. And I was 3 months old when they were trying to bomb Tan Son Nhut and trying to kill us as we escaped. And so I'm the same age as my parents' pain. And so this poem is for them. Vietnamese people talk like our language is a waterfall made of single-syllable songs. You speak it like your tongue is a snail in a shell, the world all around made of salt. It took a friend, your sister-in-law, and 2 months saying it over and over every day for you to say one Vietnamese phrase properly. You repeat it to your mother, who nods and reminds you you don't want to sound like a little boy in front of all those Vietnamese people. Behind her head, mounted on the wall in her home in Phillips, are your medals from speech team, spelling bee. She mounted them across from the mailbox where you found a bird once, flown in and broke its neck, been dead there who knows how long. She brought it outside like a treasure, like a beautiful thing, and buried it. Your dad does what he does best. He alters designer clothes bought off the clearance rack so they fit on your frame. For 40 years he has done this. For thousands of people, in a country where he will never fit in. 40 years since you almost died coming to this country. You are 40. You've always been the same age as your parents' greatest heartbreak. Your dad, he has worked with clothes so long, he can tell the quality by the touch. You can tell a good suit, he tells you, by the seam where the arms are attached, he says. He puts his palm against the fabric, smoothing it, then applies pressure, sees how the fabric snaps back. Thank you.
Thank you, Bao Phi. Hỡi các bạn trẻ Việt Nam thân yêu, dù các bạn được sinh ra và lớn lên ở đâu, thì nguồn cội của các bạn vẫn là người Việt Nam. Dòng máu luân lưu trong cơ thể của các bạn là dòng máu hào hùng của cha ông các bạn, đã hy sinh xương máu, đã tù đầy, vượt lên mọi gian khổ để các bạn được hít thở khí trời tự do hôm nay. để các bạn được thụ hưởng nền học vấn thông thái và hiện đại của thế giới. Hỡi các bạn trẻ Việt Nam thân yêu, các bạn hãy dùng tri thức sáng suốt của mình để nhận định đâu là chân lý. Các bạn hãy dùng trí thức và cái trí tuệ sáng tạo của mình để phát minh và khám phá những điều mới lạ và hữu ích cho đất nước chúng ta đang sống nói chung và cho nước Việt Nam tương lai của các bạn nói riêng. Các bạn hãy dùng những năng khiếu riêng biệt của mình để giúp đỡ lẫn nhau, đóng góp trong nhiều lĩnh vực. Và các bạn hãy dùng cái tâm của mình để hành động, để gắn bó, để đè cái tôi của mình xuống với nhiều tính cách khác nhau cùng những mâu thuẫn, tị hiềm, để đưa ích lợi chung lên trên. Ích lợi của dân tộc Việt Nam, ích lợi của đất nước của chúng ta đang sống. Hãy cùng nhau đứng lên, đoàn kết lại và nắm tay nhau để tiến lên phía trước.
Before I translate, I've been notified that a council member of this St. Paul City Council, Dayton, wanted to say a few words. So Dayton, can you please come up to the front?
Thank you. Thank you to Denise and MK, the planning committee, for inviting me to speak tonight. I also want to thank our Vietnamese American elders, leaders, and veterans. Because of your bravery, sacrifice, and leadership, you saved so many American lives during the Vietnam conflict. And because of your relentless determination, you led so many Vietnamese Americans to freedom in the United States. I'm honored to be here. This important event is especially emotional for me because our history is very similar. While the Hmong people were fighting in the spread of communism in Laos, you or your parents or grandparents were defending freedom in Vietnam. You lost those you loved, you lost your farms, and you lost your country. Yet your community is so strong. Your innovation and hardworking ethics has passed down from generations to generations. Today, my Vietnamese Americans, your community is stronger than ever. As a Hmong American, I know your experience in Minnesota hasn't always been easy. Our people struggle through racism, climb mountains of poverty, and endure many cold winters. Somehow, some way, we all survived and made a life in Minnesota. Tonight, as our hearts remember the fall of Saigon, the people we loved and lost, the relatives and friends who came with us but are no longer with us, I hope you will dedicate a part of your heart to celebrate the important contribution the Vietnamese American community has made to Minnesota. I'm proud that in Minnesota there are nearly 1,700 Vietnamese American-owned businesses with a payroll of 31 million annually. You have a consumer buying power of 478 million and contribute over 70 million in annual tax revenue to the state of Minnesota. As of 2013, 50% of Vietnamese Minnesotans have degrees beyond high school. We have so many brave Vietnamese American men and women serving our country in the armed forces. Just last year, Colonel Viet Song Long, who was born in Vietnam, migrated to the United States when he was 10 years old, became the Army's first Vietnamese American general officer. Saigon may have fallen, but it opened the door for all of us to be here as Americans. So we must remember our history, but also live on for those who we loved and lost. Today, we no longer have to fight alone in separate countries. Today, we are one, fighting for the United States of America. We are no longer divided by jungles or ocean, but are united in the ideal of democracy and our relentless pursuit of justice for all. As we co-create our future together, I hope you will accept me as one of your sons, and that you will allow me to accept the Vietnamese American community as my own community. I thank you for your trust in me and allowing me to serve you on the St. Paul City Council. I look forward to working with you the next 40 years to fulfill the promise of the Vietnamese American dream in Minnesota. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So to go back to what Solange eloquently said, and I will translate so everyone can understand. To all of our youth, no matter where we are always Vietnamese. Vietnamese blood and courage flow through our veins. Our forefathers sacrificed so much so that we can have world-class freedom and opportunity. Let's apply our minds, talents, and hearts to discover what is beneficial to our society and country. We must put our common interests before ourselves. Now I want everybody to literally stand up. Everybody stand up. Hold hands. Everyone hold hands. Come on, it's okay. Hold hands. Look around. And today marks the day that we are moving forward together. Do not ever forget. In addition, instead of just talking about change, we have identified 4 specific areas that we can work on together to strengthen the Vietnamese community. Number 1, we must encourage our policymakers and educators to recognize that our culture and our perspective on the war need to be told in textbooks K through 12. Number 2, via both financial donations and volunteerism, we need to support cultural and language preservation, so Vietnamese Americans like me can actually speak better. Number 3, we must support Vietnamese-owned businesses, whether it's the small flow shop on University or a nail salon chain out in the suburbs. Our dollars speak volumes. And number 4, lastly, it's vital that we in the community start to strengthen our voice so we can be heard, and that means voting, and voting for those that support us. Those are the 4. In conclusion, you keep holding hands. I didn't tell you to stop. Okay? Keep holding hands until you walk to your car. In conclusion, can we give everyone that came today a round of applause? That was unspun. Is everyone a round of applause? You don't have to hold hands now. You asked the question at the worst time possible. Thank you so much for coming and being part of history with the inception of Vietnamese Remembrance Day. We will now end with the wreath-laying ceremony done by our honorable veterans. And thank you for coming. Cảm ơn. Bye.
At this point, we want to give honor to all the American veterans and those who have fallen in the fight for freedom in Vietnam. We will start a line right here in the center aisle, and we will be following our lovely ladies of the service men of the Republic of Vietnam, as well as the colors, bringing the wreath to lay in honor to our dead. We will now observe a moment of silence in honor of all those who have fallen, both of the United States of America Armed Services and the Republic of Vietnam Army and all the armed services.
Lễ đặt vòng hoa bắt đầu. Xin mời hai vòng hoa tiến lên nào.
Today, on behalf of the Vietnamese community here in Minnesota, we present two wreaths. One, the wreath sponsored by the Fellowship of Republic of Vietnam Army and servicemen in honor to their fallen brothers in arms in the fight of freedom in Vietnam. And the second one, on behalf of the Vietnamese community and our general community as a whole, in honor for their sacrifice for the freedom that we so long and that we have here in this country. These wreaths are a symbol of our devotion, our love to their sacrifice and to their ultimate sacrifice of their lives. And so here, the names of those who have fallen, we give honor on behalf of the Vietnamese community.
Đây là một chút lòng thành của những người chiến hữu của quý vị đã chết trong cuộc chiến tranh Việt Nam, đã hy sinh trong chiến tranh Việt Nam. Xin quý vị thương hồn, quý vị nhận nơi đây nhận lại của tất cả chúng tôi. Súng lên vai. Đạo diễn nghĩ. Yeah!